Live from Bryant-Denny Stadium with special guests, feature stories, and a comprehensive look at Alabama's upcoming game. This is Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
Good morning, everybody, and happy Crimson Tide game day. I'm Gary Harris, live inside our WVUA 23 studios inside Bryant-Denny Stadium on the campus of the University of Alabama, and you're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23. Glad you're with us, and let's go. As always, we begin with Bama Headlines.
For the latest on the Crimson Tide, you don't need the newspaper. You need Bama Headlines.
Well, the challenge for Alabama today, one would think, is not to win the game. I mean, Bama should win the game. Alabama is a 45-point favorite against Southern Mississippi. But head coach Nick Saban wants to see his team dialed in, certainly more than it was in the last home game 2 weeks ago against Mercer. The offense opened that game with punts on the first two possessions. Now, Alabama had fast starts in Atlanta against Miami and a fast start last week in Gainesville against Florida, but not at home against Mercer, so maybe they'll pick that up today. On defense, the Tide has got to get back to its run-stopping ways that we associate with Nick Saban Alabama football teams. Last week, just being honest, Bama got gashed. 245 yards rushing by the Gators, and it was just the second opponent in the Coach Saban era to rush for 4 touchdowns in a game. Fix it today, or that could be a major concern throughout the SEC schedule. We'll discuss Alabama's impressive depth at running back and how all the players at that position are unique. Plus, interviews with Alabama men's tennis coach George Husak, who has really built a good program here. We'll get an early look at the book History Made, the 2020 national champion Alabama Crimson Tide. The author, Tommy Ford, will join us to talk about what makes it a must-have for Crimson Tide football fans. Plus, we'll talk with Lee Roberts, the color analyst for Southern Miss football, in our Behind Enemy Lines segment. Well, there seemed to be a common theme for Crimson Tide head coach Nick Saban at his midweek Wednesday press conference. He was asked 2 separate questions about player participation against Florida, one on running back Trey Sanders and one on tight end Jaleel Billingsley. After appearing in Alabama's first 2 games, Sanders did not see the field against the Gators. Brian Robinson Jr. and Jace McClellan were the only 2 Alabama running backs that played in the 31-29 victory. Coach Saban was asked about Sanders' health and says the player is not dealing with any health issues. He explained his absence from the game simply. Robinson and McClellan were doing the job too well to substitute.
When it comes to running backs, whoever's playing well and has a hot hand, that's who we're going to play. That's how it's always been around here. We've had some really good backs in the past that didn't play in games that were third guys because the other 2 guys were rolling and playing good. So there was no plan to play him or not to play him. It's just the way the game worked out.
Last week, Bama fans also got to see tight end Jaleel Billingsley catch his first touchdown pass of the season. A nice hookup with quarterback Bryce Young for one of 3 TDs the Tide scored in the first quarter. Billingsley got off to a slow start in fall practice, and he was one of the players that Coach Saban singled out for not reaching the Alabama standard. And Billingsley played sparingly in the first 2 games. So Coach was asked, what did he do or improve on to earn more playing time against Florida?
Did any of you play sports? I mean, the coach is supposed to play the best players, right? And then it's up to the players to do what they're supposed to do so they get to play because they become one of the best players. So that's what he's doing now. But I don't know, maybe if you didn't play, maybe that's not something that you quite get.
He certainly doesn't have a problem expressing his thoughts. Coach Saban has always been very direct with the media. Well, Alabama has a current 7-game winning streak against the Southern Mississippi Golden Eagles. The teams last played 2 years ago in 2019. Following last week's close game against Florida, the Crimson Tide receivers have faced questions on overcoming challenges. Alabama players look to improve discipline and technique. Tight end Cameron Latou says Southern Miss has a good defense. But then again, Alabama has to play against a good defense every day in practice.
They definitely bring a skill set that is hard to get open, which is good for me because when it gets to the game, I'm going against good players, but it also prepares me to go against good players that we will compete against. So going against them every day really helps me get better.
They're a good run defense, like you said, so we just have to adjust of sticking to our fundamentals and our technique and our rules just to keep our eyes open for what they move a lot up front, so just adjust to that.
Now, Southern Miss is just 1-2 on the season, but in their one win, a 37-0 blowout of Grambling, a guy that you're going to recognize had a big game. Golden Eagles running back Frank Gore Jr. Yes, that Frank Gore. His dad, an NFL and University of Miami legend, and through 3 games, Gore Jr. looks a lot like his famous dad. He's rushed for 274 yards and a touchdown, and last season as a true freshman, Gore Jr. rushed for more than 700 yards, so you got to deal with him. He's good. By the numbers, Southern Miss has not been a dominant offensive team this year at all, but Alabama has not played great defense the way that we expected them to. So maybe Southern Miss will have some opportunities. You see this game by the numbers there on your screen. The last time these two teams played, 49-7 in 2019. Tua threw 5 touchdown passes in that game. All right, it is a beautiful, beautiful day outside. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's textbook. It's Chamber of Commerce. It's football weather. Whatever you want to call it, it doesn't get much better than this. And CTKO's Jennifer Herbert joins us now in the Weather Center for a weather update. Jennifer, I don't know really what you can say from a weather perspective other than it's just awesome. I know. Mother Nature is smiling on us today. All the good weather elements have come together, making it for a perfect day for college football. Temperatures currently 75 here in Tuscaloosa, starting to see some folks out and about on the Walk of Champions. I just want to show you this here in the southeast. No rain headed our way, all sunshine all day. Now, if you are, one more thing, humidity, really low. We're looking at dew points of 55, making it feel even better. Now, if you're getting out to the game today, we're going to see 81 degrees as our high. That'll be for your tailgate. By kickoff, we're sitting in the mid-70s. And by the time the game gets over, we're looking at the high 60s. So you may want to get a jacket if you're coming to watch the game here at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Beautiful weekend ahead. 81 today, 84 tomorrow. I mean, what more can you ask for? All right, Jennifer, you can't ask for much more, but we will ask you again to visit with us a little bit later on in the program. Well, still to come on Crimson Tide Kickoff, we're going to take you behind enemy lines to break down Southern Miss. The Golden Eagles, as I said, are just 1-2, and they've already lost to 2 teams from the state of Alabama, South Alabama and Troy. But they feel like they're on the right track. And find out how much of the Bama blueprint Southern Miss coach Will Hall will be using. This is interesting as he tries to rebuild the USM football program, maybe in the image of Alabama a little bit. And we'll dive deep into a game day tradition that's been hanging around one local Tuscaloosa business for long over a decade. More Crimson Tide Kickoff is coming up after this.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
And welcome back to CTKO. I'm Gary Harris, live inside our WVUA 23 studios inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. Well, if you've been on campus at the University of Alabama over the past decade or so for a football game, you probably have seen an interesting window display marking off each of Alabama's football victims at Bama Stuff on the Strip. CTKO's Matthew Travis joins us now in the studio with more. Matthew.
Hey Gary, there are a plethora of Alabama clothing stores in and around Tuscaloosa, but there's one in particular that has found a way to stick out.
Well, people walking by stop and see it, and we see pictures, people taking pictures all the time. Every day we see somebody taking a picture and laughing. David Jones is the owner of Bama Stuff, an Alabama clothing store that has been in its current spot on the Strip since 1942. And about 15 or so years ago, they started the tradition of hanging Alabama's opponents' mascots for that football season in the window as the Tide's victims and victims in waiting. And it's a tradition that has evolved into something more. I think it started about 15 years ago. We had just a few mascots in the window, the major teams, and then we decided to go with all of them. And if it's a team that we play fairly often, then we have ordered a real mascot for them, like Texas A&M. Otherwise, if we play them just once a decade, we just do a picture of the team. But it's been a real eye catcher.
Jones says they have about 25 plus mascots, and the most popular mascot is a tiger, so that is one they always have to make sure they have around, as the Crimson Tide play several tiger teams a year. While the mascot window is a great tradition, Jones told me that it is only half of it. One of the employees gets to move the mascot from the victims in waiting side of the window to the fallen victim side of the window after each Alabama win, and they take great pride in the role. Reporting for CTKO, I'm Matthew Travis.
Thank you, Matthew. That is a great look at something kind of just started out kind of innocently, and it's just kind of evolved into something now that's must-see when you're on the Strip. Well, to state the obvious, Southern Miss is going to be up against a very heavy pro-Alabama crowd this evening, but the head man of the Golden Eagles may not be as uncomfortable in this environment as you might guess. The first-year head coach Will Hall got his head coaching start just down the road at the University of West Alabama. He was a Tigers assistant from 2008 to 2011 and then took over as the head coach. In 2 seasons, UWA won the Gulf South Conference Championship and advanced to the Division II football playoffs both times. Back then, the only football trips to Tuscaloosa weren't for Saturday games. They were off for off-season film study sessions. Yeah, Will Hall got very familiar with the process.
So the way we're building the program is very, very similar to the way they built that there and, off of his tree and how they built it, because I was able to be at West Isle for 6 years. The 6 years they were building that program was the 6 years I was at West Isle, and I was up there all the time. Had some really dear friends that work there, and, we've got some guys on our staff that come from that tree as well. So, I'm not connected to Coach Saban per se from having to work with him, but a lot of people that have worked for him and been under him, and then, like I said, I was in those offices as much as I could be for over a 6 year time period.
Good young football coach. Here's another USM coach that UWA fans will recognize. Desmond Lindsey is the Eagles wide receivers coach and passing game coordinator. He's a former UWA player and coach. Lindsey was on the UWA staff all the 6 seasons that Hall was there. And when Hall got promoted to the head coach in 2011, he made Lindsey his assistant head coach and recruiting coordinator. Lindsey also spent time on Hall's staff at West Georgia and, of course, now at Southern Mississippi. Well, here is Will Hall's path to becoming a head coach at the FBS level. He had tremendous success at West Alabama and then West Georgia, but he made the decision that if he wanted a shot to be the head coach of a FBS program, he needed to get back to becoming an assistant at the FBS level. He left his job as head coach at West Georgia to be an offensive coordinator at Louisiana University down there in Lafayette, Louisiana. Then he took another assistant coaching job at Memphis in 2018 before becoming an offensive coordinator at Tulane in 2019. And that's really where he got a lot of attention. In both seasons with the Green Wave, the running game ranked in the top 20 nationally. Now he is a head man, and as I said, he is an impressive young coach. I think he's going to get USM back to its winning ways sooner rather than later. Well, still to come on Crimson Tide Kickoff, Alabama soccer gets in the SEC win column. We'll show you. And could Alabama tennis be ready to move up in the conference rankings? Crimson Tide head coach George Husak, who is a phenomenal coach, previews the season coming up next. So stick around. More CTKO right after this. Alabama 0-1 in the SEC until Thursday night, hosting Missouri in the home SEC opener. Alabama had some opportunities. Aslan Streisig just misses that one. But no score into the 66th minute, but here comes the Tide. Cade Henderson is going to fire off a shot from the 6-yard box, and Alabama goes up 1-0. But after waiting 66 minutes for a goal, we came right back with another one. Missouri tied it up in the 67th minute, but Alabama got a goal by Riley Tanner in the 85th minute. The Tide gets a big win, 2-1 over Mizzou. And welcome back into Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Gary Harris. Alabama men's tennis opened the fall season last weekend with its Fall 4 All Tournament. Head coach George Husak built this year's team different from years past. There are only 8 players on the roster. The smaller roster makes sure the players know where they stand, and there's no question of who is going to be in the match lineup. Earlier this week, CTKO's Javon Williams had a chance to interview the Alabama men's head tennis coach, George Husak.
Thanks, Gary. Alabama men's tennis opened its season last weekend with its fall tournament. Between singles and doubles, Alabama scored 24 wins in the three-day tournament. Head coach George Husak is here to talk about the start and the season. Coach Husak, thank you so much for joining us.
And thanks for having me.
No problem. You called your team's performance last weekend solid. What were some of your main takeaways?
Well, number one, the guys really embraced the competition. They've been practicing for quite a while. A lot of them have been here since the end of June, start of July. So it was kind of practice, 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 and when are we going to be able to compete against someone other than ourselves? Number two, I'd say that we got to face three teams that didn't have the same preparation, I think, as we did, and we're going to face those teams again. So we may have thought that we overwhelmed them in some ways, but at the same time, they're going to get better, and so we have to keep getting better.
All right, so speaking of this year, you had 2 returning players and 6 newcomers. How have you seen this group come together? What are some of the positive signs of optimism?
Well, definitely the positive sign is that, they all get along. No one's busted through the wall here of my office. They're from 8 different countries, so it is really them closer because they've really had to listen to each other and communicate. If you don't understand, you gotta ask the questions to figure it out. So I think that has been first and foremost, is that they're so different. They're all learning together as well, but they've really leaned on each other to help them figure out certain things with respect to not only how practice runs or treatment with our athletic trainer or tutoring, but also just simply getting around campus, where to eat, where to relax. It's been very good, very positive the entire time.
All right, so your team has a week to prepare for next week's Bulldog Invitational. What are some things that you will want to focus on in practice?
Well, certainly in practice, the goal is to become and prepare to be the best competitor we can be. And that competition, or that labeled competitor, really has to do with a few things that we believe in. Number one, you have to have a plan and be very clear with that plan. And with that plan comes a lot of discipline. The number 2 piece of that discipline is to be able to adjust. We have different elements from a strategic standpoint that we're going to work on in practice, as well as doubles.
What is your assessment of the program you've been able to build? It feels like the Tide is in the mix within this Southeastern Conference. How are you feeling about that?
This is year 10, so I'm a little bit older and grayer in my hair. First couple of years, we made some advancements and some progress, and then it took me a few years to kind of figure out the right mix, and so we started over in 2017, and since 2018 and beyond, we've been in that top 20 to top 25 mix. We want to start creeping to the 15, to the top 10 and top 5. So, we've got expectations, but those goals don't happen and expectations aren't met unless we take care of our practices. We spend 75% of our time practicing, and so we need to really practice with purpose. I feel great about it, but again, you have to deliver. So if you can't move the chains, as Coach Saban says, you're not going to get very many first downs, and that's really the truth.
Well, thank you, Coach. Alabama's men travels to Starkville next weekend for Mississippi State's Bulldog Invitational. Reporting for CTKO, I'm Javon Williams.
Thank you, Javon, and thank you, Coach. I mean, I said it earlier, I'll say it again. He has done an unbelievable job building this program, and now, as he said, it's time to take even another step and get closer to that top 15, top 10 on a regular basis. Well, Peter Burns of the SEC Network shared a very telling stat earlier this week. Listen to this. 5 of the 7 teams in the SEC West are ranked in the top 25. That's just this division. That's more teams ranked than the entire Atlantic Coast Conference and Pac-12 combined. For more SEC news and info that you'll enjoy, here's Crimson Tide Kickoff producer Stu McCann with this week's around the SEC.
There's a built-in level of difficulty within the Southeastern Conference. Half of the league is currently ranked, so in the top 25. That means the conference is bound to be a gauntlet. Arkansas head coach Sam Pittman knows this, but that doesn't mean he can't remind us. The Razorbacks open SEC play today, hosting 7th-ranked Texas A&M. Next week, it's a road game at number 2 Georgia, then a trip to 13th-ranked Ole Miss, and a home game against 23rd-ranked Auburn. Later in the year, the Razorbacks play top-ranked Alabama at Bryant-Denny Stadium. This week, Pittman joked with ESPN's Adam Rittenberg he should be the one on the college football selection committee because, quote, he's the one who knows who the best teams in the country are. The joke is the Razorbacks have already played them. Auburn hosts Georgia State this afternoon, but did you see this? Last week, Auburn offensive lineman Nick Brom started a GoFundMe page for the father of Tigers teammate Luke Deal. Earlier this year, Deal's dad was diagnosed with ALS. The GoFundMe page, which of course Brom started, has already raised more than $67,000 with an overall goal of $300,000 to help the family purchase a handicap-accessible van and remodel their home.
You don't often get too many people to do what Nick's done, and just being there for me and spreading the word like he has, and the love and support that I've felt from his family, from my teammates, and that my family has felt from the entire Auburn community has been it's been so unreal.
Here's that web address to the GoFundMe page that Brom started. It's listed right here on the page, or you can also search Luke Deal GoFundMe. Next week, Alabama hosts Ole Miss. Possibly the biggest downside to the build-up to the big game is we likely won't see Rebels coach Lane Kiffin as active as usual on social media, like this picture he posted on Twitter of the personalized license plate rat poison. In the caption, "Thanks for the new plate, Cedric." Then he tagged Alabama football. "See you next weekend." Now, what are the chances you're going to see that on a shirt next Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium? I'd say fair to very good. For Around the SEC and Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Stu McCann.
Thank you, Stu. Great information there. That Lane Kiffin now, he is a piece of work, but an unbelievable football coach. All right, here's today's SEC schedule. 3 games in progress, including second-ranked Georgia at Vanderbilt. The Commodores don't have leading rusher Ramon Davis. He has a torn ligament in his toe and will miss the rest of the season, and they're already, of course, shorthanded just because they don't have as much talent as everybody else in the league. LSU at Mississippi State. It's the SEC opener for both. MSU looks to make it 2 straight wins over the Tigers. Remember, they started off the season last year with that big win in Baton Rouge. The CBS 2:30 game is 7th-ranked Texas A&M taking on 16th-ranked Arkansas in Arlington at AT&T Stadium. It's the first time the Razorbacks have played that featured CBS time slot, National Game of the Week, since 2017, and both teams are a perfect 3-0 going into the game. 3 games this evening. South Carolina hosts Kentucky at 6. We'll see if the Gamecock defense is up to the challenge of stopping Wildcats' Chris Rodriguez, who is the SEC leading rusher. And, of course, obviously, tonight you've got Bama and Southern Mississippi. And, of course, Auburn going to be in action on this Saturday as well. Well, still to come on Crimson Tide Kickoff, we go behind enemy lines to get the Southern Mississippi perspective on tonight's game. And Southern Miss is not an SEC rival and doesn't have the tradition of those games in the SEC for Alabama, but it's had some incredible moments. We'll look back at one of those very special ones coming up on CTKO.
Fourth and 12. Gore lays it up. They're going to rule it a completion. And remember, we do have replays.
This is an awesome catch. Falk has great coverage, but see, he put his left arm on. Look, he catches off his back and holding on to the football. That's incredible. That's a great job of
catch of the year.
Mark, he's making a blind catch. He doesn't even see it. He's just using his back and he's squeezing. That might be one of the best catches I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of them.
That is the catch of the year in college football. Pro throw.
He's down.
Put it on his neck, on the neck of Jasper Falk.
Well, one of the most spectacular plays in Alabama football history came against Southern Miss. Tyrone Prothro, what a football player, was being face guarded by Southern Miss quarterback Jasper Falk as seconds dwindled down before the half. It was 4th and 12, and Crimson Tide quarterback Brody Coyle let it go. He heaved it up, and you saw the catch over and over. He absolutely pinned it against the defender's back, and yes, that is a catch. The play went on to be known very simply as the catch and earned Prothro the ESPY for Play of the Year. Wow, what a football player Tyrone Prothro was, and just a shame that his career ended in 2005 with that injury against the Florida Gators, but not before he provided that incredible moment for Alabama football fans to have forever. And welcome back to CTKO. I'm Gary Harris. It's time now to go behind enemy lines. Southern Miss has struggled so far this season. They're 1-2 through their first 3 games, but they have shown potential to get a better look at the Golden Eagles season so far, and also to take a look at today's game from the Southern Miss point of view. Crimson Tide Kickoff's Matthew Travis rejoins us as he went behind enemy lines with former USM quarterback Lee Roberts, who is now the color analyst for the Southern Miss radio broadcast. Matthew?
Hey, Gary. This week I spoke to Lee Roberts, who is a color analyst for Southern Miss Radio, and he said for this to be a successful game for the Golden Eagles this afternoon, they have to eliminate mistakes and establish the running game.
So one thing we want to make sure we go in and try to eliminate mistakes. We don't want to have any bad penalties. We want to make sure we can throw and catch. It seems like in both our losses this year, we've had some drops. Offensively, we've got to be able to establish the running game up front with our bigs, and that's just something that we feel like we need to try to do Saturday.
Not only is Southern Miss going into their toughest game of the season, but they're doing so with a quarterback who is making his second career college start in Ty Keyes. And Roberts told me he just hopes to see Keyes play smart football.
Just want to make sure he goes in and plays smart football. Alabama's going to make some plays. They're going to make some plays on the offensive line. They're going to get to him. They're going to pressure him. They're going to make plays in the back end, and just want to see him stay composed. And if he makes a mistake, to go to the sideline, talk it over Coach Hall, and then go out and try to correct it. And that's the biggest thing.
Southern Miss hasn't exactly gotten off to a great start this season, as they are 1-2 through 3 games. But Roberts told me first-year head coach Will Hall wants to take the Golden Eagles back to where they used to be over the next couple of seasons.
Out of Coach Hall, obviously just trying to keep them guys up. I'm sure it's been a tough week at practice, knowing that we're 1-2 and we're headed to face the number 1 team in the country. But Coach Hall understands what it takes, and he knows if it's not this year, it's next year or the year after. But his plan is build this program, and that's what he wants. He wants to build it back to where Southern Miss used to be, where we could go into places and be an underdog and go and compete and still a win. And so Saturday, I know he wants to coach well, he wants his guys to play well, but I think just being positive all week long will be their main key.
Roberts also told me that for this game to be a success for Southern Miss, it won't necessarily come in the form of a win. He thinks if they can start well and finish well, and also not have their defense on the field all day by constantly having 3 and outs on offense, it will be a successful game for the Golden Eagles. Reporting for CTKO, I'm Matthew Travis.
Awesome, Matthew. A little note on Lee Roberts. I remember him well. In the mid-'90s, he led them to a Conference USA championship, threw for over 6,000 yards in his career. So he was a really good player there when Southern Miss was stout. All right, still to come on Crimson Tide Kickoff. Much more on the program, and we're going to keep you informed, hopefully educated and entertained all at the same time. We'll be back with more CTKO right after this. And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff here on WVUA 23, Alabama and Southern Mississippi, tonight at 6:30 at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Well, right now we're joined by Tommy Ford, who spent over 40 years as a full-time employee of the University of Alabama in a number of different roles, and even now, since he's retired, he really hasn't retired. He's consulting and working on special projects like team reunions, and he has written another book. I say another book because I don't know for sure how many Tommy has written, but it's quite a few, and this one is absolutely beautiful. It's a coffee table book, History Made, the 2020 National Champion Alabama Crimson Tide by Tommy forward with the incredible forward by Mac Jones. Not only is the forward incredible, he put in a whole list of goals that his father had set for him, I want to say back in 2017, 2018, somewhere in there, that Mac followed to get to that point last year where he led Alabama to a 13-0 season. How you doing, Tommy?
I'm great, Gary. How are you doing?
Doing well. How many books have you written total?
This is my 12th. I've been blessed to have been around Alabama football a long time, and I just love to put what we have seen on the field into words, and it's been a pleasure for me. This is probably my favorite just because of the unique season that we had, and with Mac writing the forward for the book, it just kind of was icing on the cake. So, but you were right, the Mac's forward is awesome.
It's unbelievable. I don't know if you remember this. I remember your first book very well. Bama Under Bear, Alabama's Family Tides, because I was a brand new teenage sports reporter at WHMA Channel 40 in Anniston working for Mike Scruggs, and you came to the station, I want to say maybe it was 1982 or 83, to promote that book.
Exactly.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. That was my first book, and it was on 9 different families of Alabama football, either father, son, or brothers. And then in 1992, we did an update and added 7 more families, put it out in paperback. It's called just Alabama's Family Tides. And it was a unique study, sort of all the different family combinations, for at least 16 chapters, 16 families worth.
I remember it. Remember it well.
We've had a few more since then, but I've been blessed to have been around a lot of great football, great athletics, and have found a lot of satisfaction in putting it into words.
This book, history made, because it was history. A lot of national championships at the University of Alabama, but this was the 6th for Nick Saban in 12 years, the 7th overall, which gives him the most national championships of any head coach in college football history, eclipsing Coach Bryant. So I love the title of the book because they're all special, but this one was making history in the process.
It really was, and we got that name from the T-shirts that the players wore immediately after the game. Nike had provided history-made T-shirts for all the players. They're black T-shirts, and we were kind of struggling to come up with a name for the book, and decided to, well, hey, let's try that. And I ran it up the ladder to the publishers, and they loved it, and it turned out well. And with Mac writing the forward, and then, as you know, the photography is unbelievable. Kent Gedley and his staff did a great job. It's the only officially licensed book on the 2020 championship. And Kent can get in the locker rooms, in the tunnels, in the team meetings. And that's what makes it unique. There's probably, of the 150 photos, there's probably 30 of them that no one could have made except Kent. No regular photographer could have been in those meetings or have that access. And the book starts with the unbelievable COVID that hit our team in March of 2020, and the first chapter is really Jeff Allen and his miracle working that he did to get that team ready to play in the fall and keep them healthy throughout the fall. So Jeff played a huge role in the success of that 2020 championship. So the whole first chapter has to do with when it shut down and how Dr. Ray and David Ballou helped with the strength and conditioning when the players were away for a while, and all the testing and protocols and all the things they went through to keep healthy through the summer and on into the fall. And then we do a chronological game-by-game summaries with great photos and kind of, climaxing there at the end with the Ohio State game.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And as you said, the photos are unbelievable. And there's great text. I haven't had a chance to read it. I just got it in fact, today, and looked over it prior to the interview and read the foreword. But I'm familiar with your work. It's beautiful. You can set it out on the coffee table, as I said, and even if people don't have time to read it, you'll just be mesmerized by the pictures. All right, Tommy, important order of business here. History Made is available now for pre-order with Books A Million, Whitman, and Amazon. Of course, the Whitman, great publishing company, has put it out, so folks can go ahead and pre-order it now. When will it be available for just regular purchase?
Well, I know this expression has been overused all my life, but the books have literally been on a slow boat from China. And they were printed in China, and it's my understanding they were to have hit the States today or tomorrow. So I'm hoping that within a week or two, they will be in all the bookstores. But people can pre-order now through, as you said, Whitman, Amazon, and Books A Million.
Well, if you're an Alabama fan, you're going to want to purchase History Made, the 2020 National Champion Alabama Crimson Tide. Tommy Ford, the author, great, incredible forward by Mac Jones. Get it now and cherish this championship forevermore. Thank you so much, Tommy. Good to catch up.
Thank you. Take care, Gary.
All right, and we'll be back with more CTKO right after this. We're back on CTKO here on WVUA 23. I'm Gary Harris. Full stadiums and, of course, tailgating have returned this season, and the Bruno event team is taking advantage. The Birmingham-based event management group will visit 15 Alabama colleges and universities for a game day tailgate promotion, and it's worthwhile. CTKO's Tatum Vaught has more on the Kick COVID campaign that will be in Tuscaloosa this afternoon. Tatum?
Thanks, Gary. The Alabama Department of Public Health and the Bruno event team are partnering up to find new ways to get Alabama residents vaccinated. The Kick COVID campaign is a statewide program offering free COVID-19 vaccinations on select college football game days this fall. And who better to promote the program to Tide fans than Alabama football players themselves?
I like to catch touchdowns. One thing I don't like to catch is COVID-19. It's important to get vaccinated because of the energy the fans give us in the stadium. So please do your part in getting vaccinated so that you can help our team. For more information, visit kickcovid19.com. Hey, be a champion and get vaccinated.
Kick COVID gives Alabama residents a unique opportunity to take advantage of a free vaccination site located right beside the Walk of Champions.
We really want to drive our numbers up here in the state of Alabama, and they're going up. We've passed several states here lately in terms of vaccination rates. So we felt like using the power of college football was a great platform.
Kick COVID's goal is to normalize getting vaccinated while being conveniently located for students and fans on game days. Hallman believes that the power of sport has the ability to convince people to get their shots.
It's peer groups or influencer groups that drive behavior, and there's no better influencer group for Alabama fans than Alabama football players, so that's why we ended up with the program we have.
Kick COVID will be visiting all 15 college football programs in the state of Alabama, but this will be the only time to take advantage of the opportunity in Tuscaloosa. Medical professionals will be at the tent to administer shots 3 hours before kickoff until an hour after the game to give people plenty of time to get their vaccine.
In addition, Kick COVID is offering a $75 gift card to the soup store as a thank you to those who take advantage of this opportunity to get vaccinated. There's a 3-week window period where Alabama residents can still take advantage of the promotional offer if they submit their vaccination card. Today's event will begin at 2:30 beside the Walk of Champions. Live in the studio for CTKO, I'm Tatum Vaught. Back to you, Gary.
All right, Tatum, I give that a big thumbs up. We'll be back after this.
Welcome back into CTKO, everyone. My name is Mike Royer, and his name is Don Staley. Don is an important figure in Tuscaloosa because he is interested in and working toward continued growth and good things in the city. Don is the president and CEO of Tourism and Sports for the Tuscaloosa area. I know you love your work and you love to see big crowds like we'll see here on campus today.
Well, first and foremost, Mike, thanks so much for having me. It's always good to be here at WVUA. I love that sports coat. Don't leave it sitting on a chair, okay?
We're close to the same size, maybe. Yeah, you're welcome to borrow it. Besides big football days, which I know are important to you because you want people to come to Tuscaloosa and have a good experience. We've been through a difficult time, and we can fill up our stadium. The question is, can our hotels and restaurants restaurants and other entities handle these crowds?
Thank you so much for bringing that up because, I know that what the Chamber of Commerce, Jim Page, the CEO over there, and Donnie Jones, Workforce Development, they're working hand in hand with people in the community, our restaurants, our hotels. Kelsey Rush from my staff is working also with Shelton State. We're trying to put together a job fair which is already paying dividends. I think Kelsey said that they've already had about 600 hits already for jobs. The important part of that is we need for the folks coming into Tuscaloosa this weekend to be patient. Be patient with the hotel staff. Please be patient with the restaurants because we're understaffed. We're trying to get back up to speed. Just imagine what it was like this summer if you went to the beach. It was really tough down there at the beach.
And many restaurants will even have a sign going, we're a little short-staffed, please be patient, it may take a little longer, but that going in makes you understand, okay, we're all in this together, let's understand what we're coming out of.
Amen. I know that we've got some billboards around the community, and again, what the Chamber's doing. I think that we're going to find that those restaurants are going to have as many staff as they can get for this weekend. The first game was a test run. It was an afternoon game. But having an evening game, we've got more people coming to town. That stadium would be filled up. They'll be here longer. And so I think that when you're here longer, you're going to see an uptick in not just the restaurant, but also in the retail.
Give me some headlines of other things you're working on down the road that may not even be firmed up yet, but what kind of things are you trying to attract to our area?
Well, first and foremost, the mayor, city council, the Elevate committee, all the great work that's being done there. Whatever comes out of it at the end of the day is going to be great for Tuscaloosa. Not just, for our community, but from a tourism perspective, whatever facilities are built, we'll be able to use to book events to bring in, whether that's sports or meetings, conferences, conventions. So we're part of the Elevate program, and we're glad to be part of that. We just had a great meeting with the administrator and engineer from the city of Northport talking about bass fishing. I ran up to Lincoln, Alabama the other day, met with the nicest fella, Coach Les Robinson. He showed me their $5 million build out of the Lincoln Landing, and the economic impact that's going to come into Lincoln, Alabama is amazing.
Those of us who don't fish, I don't think realize what big business and tourism attraction bass fishing is in many parts of the country, but especially here in Alabama.
Our goal is to eventually be part of the Alabama Bass Fishing Trail. We've got a guy, Dr. Hobson Bryant, who studied for Mobile and for Baldwin County, did a great job down there. He's in our community. Big fishing guy, Bob Hale. We've got a tournament that we're getting ready to announce that Stan, my sports director, just signed. We could be part of that Alabama Bass Fishing Trail because the Black Warrior River is fertile with fishing. And we could be part of the trail, which would create about anywhere between $1.5 and $1.8 million annually in economic impact off of bass fishing.
Cities like ours, slightly bigger than ours, slightly smaller than Tuscaloosa, are competing for some of the same tourism dollars. What's our selling point? When you go out and pitch Tuscaloosa in West Alabama, what's the selling point for our area?
Well, it's so funny when you go to a sports conference. You don't have to tell those sports people who have got all these different events that want to come to different cities where Tuscaloosa is.
Exactly.
We're the city of champions. They know about Coach Saban. They know about Bear Bryant. They know how good we are. On the tourism side of the house now, you'd be surprised. There's a lot of folks that you have to tell them where Tuscaloosa actually is. What are amenities? We talk about football. We talk about the Mercedes, of course. You've got incredible university itself academically, this TV station, and you've got, of course, across the river with Northport, all the things that they're doing there. But we've got great outdoor. And I look at, after I came back home, after being down there in Foley for 3.5 years building that project, I didn't recognize downtown. We've got a very vibrant downtown and Midtown, and I could go on and on. What we've got here is something special, and when we go to these trade shows, we open up the video, and more times than not, people go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize.
Well, no one better to lead that charge for tourism and sports than Don Staley. We appreciate your time today. Thanks for the good work you do, and roll tide.
Roll tide. Thank you so much.
Let's go back to Gary now on CTKO.
Thanks, Mike. A couple of pros right there. Final check of the forecast when we come back.
So, we need to play to our standard. We need to do the things that we do well. It's always great to, play at Bryant-Denny Stadium, to be home. I'd like to, see our fans, have some passion and enthusiasm and energy for this team. And I think it would be helpful to them.
All right, here's a look at your weather before the game. Currently 77, starting to see some foot traffic pick up outside of Bryant-Denny Stadium. Will warm up into the mid-80s today. For your tailgating, 81. 6:30 kickoff, 75, and we'll end the game at 67 degrees. So take a jacket and enjoy it. Gary?
Thank you so much, Jennifer. We're going to enjoy it. And I think the fans are going to respond to Coach Saban, too. I think they're going to be loud and proud tonight. And I think it's going to be a full house at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Well, that's going to do it for Crimson Tide Kickoff. I want to thank all the great folks here at WVOA 23, including, of course, producer Stu McCann and director Catherine Reed, and all the great folks. Catch Dylan Morgan tonight on WVOA 23 News at 10 with an Alabama football recap. Enjoy the game, everybody. Stay safe and roll Tide. WVOA 23 News tonight at 10 o'clock. Have a great day.